welcome to the third episode of the Synwave podcast. Today, the hosts are me, George, the president of the team.
Me, Vas, the secretary.
Me, Nicholas, the funding team manager.
And we have a guest today, Vasillis Rallis. This episode is, we brought three topics of interest, including AI, neural networks and neural computers, and DNA origami. And we thought it would be interesting to have Vasillis, a person interested in especially AI and network creation in general, an individual outside of biology, to ask some questions on AI to make the podcast more interesting. Vasil, do you have anything to say about yourself? Do you want to
No, I'm Vasillis. I live in Greece. I study in Greece, and that's all. I don't think I have anything else to add.
What are you studying?
Well, I'm studying computer science and telecommunications, but I especially focus on the telecommunications part. Sorry, not the telecommunications part, the computer science part. The telecommunications part I find boring. It's cool. It's cool because, sometimes you might find something interesting that you didn't find interesting in the beginning. So I just force my way through it, and I hope I like it in the end, But I'm not mad about it. It's enjoyable. So yeah, that's what I do right now.
Yeah, like we talked said in our previous episode, our interview with Julian Ribaud, we asked him what he thinks is some advice for young people like us trying to find our way through this degree stuff. And he said that you basically have to try stuff, and in the end, something might be the one. For our listeners, this is our previous episode 2, so if you would like to go listen to that, I think you would find it very interesting. Dr. Julian is a doctor at the University of Glasgow. But anyways, let's move on to this episode. So, first topic is AI. Vas, do you want to introduce the topic?
Yeah, sure. So, as everyone knows, AI is a prevalent topic nowadays as we continue to further the software. And I think I just wanted to kick off the podcast by asking our guest if we could get a quick explanation between, why it's not actually AI and why it's actually called I think it's an LLM. Would you like to go further?
Well, there is. The thing is right now. I mean, AI is like it has become, I think, a slang term at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what people think of as AI is now called AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, which basically means it's when the AI will actually know what it's talking about and won't just be, because right now LLMs it's basically like a mathematical model that guesses which word comes after a word that previously came. So we will have like hi, and then this mathematical model predicts what comes next. So right now it's not actually smart, but these models have become so good at what they do, where we have first of all reached the limit of what they can do. So now they're moving on to other models which I'm not educated in, so I won't tell you about them. But this particular model, the transformation model, I think it's called, or I'm not sure. It basically guesses which words come after some other words, and it has become so good that you can't really tell it's dumb, but it, like, deep down it doesn't know what it's talking about. That's why sometimes we talk about AI hallucinations. It basically thinks something will come after something else, which is completely wrong. It just completely hallucinates, as we say. And yeah, but AI is more of like a marketing term nowadays. I think what everyone is afraid of is AGI, where AI will actually be intelligent and can actually form thoughts and be creative and have creative thinking and all of these, like critical creative thinking and all of these other human traits. But right now, I think it's more of a tool, but it's evolving so quickly. In 6 months, what I just said might be completely irrelevant. So yeah, it's like when the first iPhone released back in the day, and then they started releasing more smartphones, and then there was like a big boom where every year we saw massive changes and massive developments in like smartphones, and now you don't even see like there is like a new phone every year from like Apple and Samsung, and it's the same thing because this like curve of like smartphone development has peaked, so there is nothing else to do. But for AI, we're just at the beginning, so there are going to be dramatic changes in the next 10, 15 years. I don't know how long this is all going to take or happen for. But yeah, that's what I want to say for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it seems like the growth is exponential. Like it
Yeah.
keeps evolving and evolving. So would you say that? Vas, you did some research as well. Would you say that programs that develop drugs or proteins like the AlphaFold we talked last time, is this categorized as AGI or is it LLM as well?
I think personally, I don't think it's either. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's a machine learning model, isn't it?
Like AlphaFold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, AlphaFold. Yeah, it's not a large language model because LLM. I forgot to mention earlier. It predicts words and stuff like that. But like there are multiple other AI models, and because we're not talking about like text and paragraphs in AlphaFold 2 at least, we don't use LLMs, but we use like a neural network of some other sort. I think most of the times in these types of research.
So do you think with the introduction of AGI, we would see like a complete change with AlphaFold and other tools like that?
Well, the issue right now is because like a lot of AIs can now like they solve the Turing test, so there's no longer like a benchmark of what is actually like be considered actually AGI and what is not AGI. There's like a very thin line. So right now, I think the biggest issue is when will an actual AI be considered AGI? Because at some point they might start thinking from themselves, but what's the limitation of that? Because behind it, it's all maths most of the time. So what's the actual limitations? Is it actually thinking for itself, or does it have some capacity to think for itself? And will it get smarter than us? Will that let it get smarter than us? How do we benchmark that? Right now there is like a whole community trying to like develop benchmarks for LLMs and other AI models. And right now, I don't think personally, I don't know in particular, but personally, I don't think there's a good benchmark. So yeah, AGI probably will help whenever we get the first AGI models with all these developments, but at the same time you can't have like an AGI model and have it distilled, because right now a lot of LLMs, at least like ChatGPT, the model is a distilled model, which is basically they pick information specifically to make sure it's like they don't train it on like bad data. But like an AGI, wouldn't you think that it should be trained like with like all forms of data, and it should think for itself on which types of data is good and which types of data is not good? So, but like, do we let like an AI like be trained like that if it's an AGI model? Because we have AI models that are not distilled and they're trained on like all sorts of stuff that it's not sect. But what about an AGI model? If we actually have like a proper AGI model at some point, should we actually be allowed to do that? Should we actually be allowed to make a non-distilled model of some sorts, which is AGI as well? So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think I feel like AGI. I think it depends on how the policies that our politicians set. I think that's what would mainly shape how AGI is trained. I feel like
Policies.
the policies.
Yeah.
Do you think there's rigorous enough policies to ensure that it would be used ethically and responsibly, like AGI or AI? Do you feel like there are any policies that are rigorous enough for that?
Well, at least in the EU, since I think June or July last year, there have been two bills that have been passed and enforced. That put like basically, yeah, they have been enforced about AI. I've only read about the first AI bill. They call it the AI bills. Right now, they have done some pretty significant steps to make sure AI is being used correctly, but it's like with cloning. We might have regulations here in the European Union, but that doesn't mean in some other parts of the world they might continue doing something that in the Western world at least we consider unethical. Maybe they consider it something important. But it's like it's depending on who is ruling, like who is like ruling and what they think and what like the political party thinks. I think that's how it's gonna go. But depending on where you are, you might see different different results as of like due to legislation. But in the EU, like they banned the use of AI. For example, you can't be like the government, for example, it can't create some sort of credit score system where you pass a red light and an AI detects that and they like mark you as a not that good of a citizen or something like that. They are completely banned, for example, and they have done a lot more, which is good. It provides some like direction, I guess. But you can't really stop. You can't really stop it now because we live in like a connected world. So research will go all around the globe, and in some other places they might develop some stuff more. In some other places they might think it's unethical and they might stop. But they're gonna see. Yeah, that's what I think about the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'll just step in for a second. And some thoughts that I always have with AI and general intelligence is that it's unclear where the threshold is regarding consciousness.
Yeah.
So, like, you train a general intelligence, and we can't define really when it thinks for itself, can we?
No, but I think that there'd be a. Do you feel like there'd be a clear distinction when it starts like thinking for itself? Because I've seen that once you have an AGI, it's able to train itself very rapidly and become more honed on all different types of skills. So I think that change would be noticeable. No,
It would depend on the definition you place upon consciousness.
I guess. Yeah.
So how would that actually work? Then how does the AI train itself?
So does it provide itself with new data sets, or?
I think Bill would be the best.
Well, I can't say anything I'm saying is like completely factual because there are so many different types of AI. But as far as I know for AGI, what they are afraid of is that it will start creating, basically using already trained data, will start creating new data for itself. So it knows what is fact, like scientifically, for example. Let's just take like a scientific training, some scientific training parameters. It already knows what scientifically is true. It has everything, like it has all the tools we have, and then it uses these tools as we do, and it creates new data for itself with these tools. So then it has more data to to work with, and then it might have a realization if it's like actually intelligent. It might have a realization that this no one has ever thought of trying this or doing that this way, and it will start developing techniques of thinking or like using the tools we gave it, like all the scientific tools we have right now, in like new ways. For example, this is like I don't know how I made this connection, but I was like a few days ago I was reading about how we started calculating pi digits way quicker, like thanks to like Newton, I think. And some people are also crediting another like scientist from India, but I don't remember his name. I don't know who actually did it first, and I think they both did it separately without knowing they did it. But yeah, there was like an old method to calculate pi digits, and then there was like this new method that no one thought of using like maths this way to calculate anything. So he like played with like, oh, I should do that and that differently, and then he came out with a new way to calculate pi digits. Like take this example, like of like calculating pi digits, and like now apply it to like AI, but AI can think, like can have 1,000 minds and think a million times faster than Newton ever did. And then it will start developing its own tools, and then we will stop understanding what it's doing, like how many minds can keep track of what he's doing if we let it completely loose to think for itself like so quickly. So I think maybe it will go this way. Maybe this will never happen. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's what people are scared of mostly.
Yeah. Whereas in a scientific scenario, you would want. I think the general consensus would be that you would want AI to be more as a tool for the scientists and not as a way of doing their work by itself.
Yeah.
So, for example, you would want it to, for a specific task, to think something, and then the scientist takes what the AI thought and integrates it with his own knowledge to use it as a tool to develop, maybe to give some new ideas. But you wouldn't want to rely on like the AI training itself again and doing the whole task. And maybe that could also make development easier. If you just want an AI model as a tool, the development will certainly be easier.
Yeah, and I think a team, had that thought process, and there's a UK-based company that actually made an AI model that analyzes the different skin cells for like any what's the word for it, sample that they get,
Yeah.
and they test a different set of drugs to see which one is effective for cancer cells. So if there's a patient that has cancer and is terminally ill, and none of the drugs are working, they take a sample of the patient's cells and they analyze, which drug is the most effective, and then using their AI model, they're able to see notice minute differences in the cells, which traditionally would take a lot more time for scientists to find, and then they used that to prescribe drugs. And so, I can see and this company, they're looking at a future of where they continue training this AI to eventually produce new drugs,
Yeah.
which then can be used to treat cancers.
What's their name, by the way?
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I just need to find their name. Hold on a second.
Yeah, no worries. So that could be a huge step in accelerating the development of drugs. And I think with something like this, you can also think of how you could develop drugs that are more specialized to the individual, right? Whereas with normal science, producing a drug that has to be specialized to every person would be so time consuming that it might lose its worth. But if you have a tool to do that faster, based on the bioinformatics database, it could make it much faster. What's the name of the company?
So the company is called Exscientia.
Let's see.
Exscientia.
Exscientia. So Scientia. Exscientia. Like Exscientia.
Yeah.
For our listeners to spell if they want. That's certainly interesting.
Yeah, so they work with an AI model to identify which drug is best for cancer against cancer cells. But that kind of brings me up to my next question, which I wanted to ask you guys, or wanted to hear your thoughts, which was, as we get more and more AI usage for optimizing drug delivery, do you see any adverse effects that could possibly happen with AI constantly, producing new variations of drugs?
Maybe it could become overwhelming for the scientists to analyze if there is so much information, but that could definitely be controlled. But I would think the next step after having something like that, and you guys can say your opinion as well, is that after having such a tool, then there should be a tool or a method to regulate it, to filter the good things from the...
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure with the EU and in America and the UK, you have different health boards that regulate which drugs enter the market.
I think it would be quite hard for pharmaceutical companies to try and monitor the production and keep up with the production if the AI was constantly producing the drugs. I mean, it would probably create a lot of new companies and jobs, but that would obviously take a while to set up.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But maybe you will need a algorithm to regulate the tool itself. So not like a legislative thing, but another maybe model. But I'm not an expert in this stuff, so I'm not sure if this could work.
I was thinking more of the antibiotic sides of things as well. If you have, a new strain that triggers or a new bacteria strain that triggers the AI to develop a new drug, and then you use that, and then it becomes resistant to that drug, and then you have this constant cycle of a new drug for a new strain.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to contribute like that in the antibiotic race.
Yeah, that's my thought behind it.
Yeah.
I think I just had one more final thing to discuss. It was more just how we can slowly get AI integrated more into the medical field, from the standpoint of the computer scientists, and also from our side. If Vasillis would like to kick off the discussion, do you think there's a way of where AI can be integrated more?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. There is probably ways to integrate it better than it is integrated right now, but the thing is, Like, do you integrate it completely? Does it have access to the machines directly, or not? Or is that a good idea? I don't know. Like, it's
I think it would become a question of. Sorry, do you want to go?
no. It's like it's a thought. Like what level of access should it have, and what data should it have access to, and how much we trust it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why maybe you would want it to remain a tool and not like
Complete
the
replacement.
administrator.
Yeah.
But I think on that sort of wavelength, a question to a developer would be like, as a computer scientist, I think to know how to integrate in the medical field, you would need to collaborate with people that have knowledge in the medical field, because I think a computer scientist that solely operates in this area, no biological or medical fields, will need like a certain kind of collaboration and understanding by both parties to do something like that. So maybe it's a complicated task. Yeah.
I was just about to say that. Do you think there's enough people that are interested in both sides for it to become like a fully emerged field? Or do you think there'll have to try and be like a recruitment drive to get people from either side to work together? Or
Well, if you're asking me, at least where I study, in like the third and fourth year of uni, they actually give you the option to integrate your knowledge of computer science and telecommunications into many fields, like computer networks, and medicine is one of them. And some other universities are like distinctly, they have like a specific, like they have professors that are the only thing they do is actually they work with people like that want to actually use their knowledge in a medical field, in like a medical field, like the computer science knowledge. So I think there is already like when we're talking about computers, they're already, I think, completely integrated into science. And medicine. They help us so much to like develop and do research. So I think like actually integrating, I don't know to what level, to be honest, but integrating as a tool these new technologies, I think it will be like I think that is possible, and there will be people that want to do it and they're passionate about it, because people actually choose to like combine medicine and computer science a lot of times, if given the option, of course, or in some other master degree afterwards. But yeah, I don't think we need to like. Of course, there is gonna be people pushing for like recruitment and forcing people to work together. But I think people will find the reasons to work together. They will have ideas and they will want to implement them and they will want to help. So I think like a lot of prosperity will come from that, and we've already seen it, because nothing would have been possible if people really didn't want to, when it came to integrating medicine in the past with computers. And yeah, so I think we'll be fine, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I'm no expert. Just that's my thought.
I mean, yeah, I'm interested in it from like the biomedical engineering point of view. So it's good to hear that people are obviously going to be interested in it from the more computer science side. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think these are good thoughts to conclude the topic, but I would like to sort of continue on that kind of area and talk about. So lately there has been a great push in media about how AI consumes a lot of energy as well. So like I think there was a comparison made that every question in ChatGPT is a liter of water.
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere near that statistic.
Vasily, did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, I also read the comparison. I don't know how true it is. Like one prompt is 14 Google searches, or
Yeah.
one prompt is like making 30 coffees.
And
Well, it's. No, go ahead, please.
No.
Yeah, the thing about this thing with like the energy situation, it's actually pretty concerning. But the thing is, AI is not like a single thing. There is multiple models, multiple different ways to train it. So if we improve our training techniques, and if we improve the hardware that is used to train AIs on, and large language models or other types of AI, right now, I think it's called an LPU, if I can Google it real quick. LPU AI, I think, yeah, it's No, AI interface. Yeah, there is like a new language processing unit, LPU. It's like a GPU and a CPU
Yeah.
in computers. When it comes to LLMs, for example, they're developing a new technology called an LPU, which is basically a language processing unit, which is specifically designed to calculate and handle like training and like generation of prompts, generation of answers to prompts. So there is already AI clusters out there that use LPUs and not GPUs to train AIs and respond to prompts. And an LPU I haven't heard a lot of it, but I know that an LPU is way more energy efficient because it's way more specific to that task. And GPUs are very not specific to that task. GPUs can do a lot of things, as you can tell, like from crypto and video games and rendering, fluid simulations, AI. So yeah, now that they've made this specific piece of hardware, it's helping a lot with like the energy situation. But maybe a new transformer model or a new mathematical model comes around, and it's very expensive to compute, and then like power consumption goes up again, or maybe it goes down. If we found a better model that is easier to train. Yeah, that's my thought on it. I don't know if you agree or not, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that continuing on that, it's really interesting that some scientists, instead of thinking this way with the hardware, making a new processing unit, they thought biologically and they said, what if we replace the GPU with neurons, so an actual brain, our processing unit. And now there's development in, it's called the Neuro platform by a Swiss company, if I'm right. I will double check it. I have their article open. And
I saw you liked a post about the first computer that uses like neurons, I think, to work. No,
yeah,
I saw on Instagram you liked the post about it that they're selling them now, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. We should talk about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I was thinking about it yesterday.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about it in this this episode. So it's a Swiss company called Final Spark, and they have developed a thing called a neuro platform. And basically, what they do is exactly that. They use neural networks. So, like, it's literally a really small sphere of neurons, human brain neurons, that they have, and they connect electrically in order to simulate a processing unit. And they rent it out for $500 a month for scientists to try to explore what it can do. And how it works is that, in AI, there is a thing called, it's trial and error system to train AI. So it's like with feedback. So if it does a wrong action, you give it negative feedback, and then in the next trial it tries again. I don't remember the name of this system. So what they do with the neurons is they give it stimuli. They give it like a dopamine stimuli when it does the right thing to say that, yeah, it's doing it right. So it's basically the same system with trial and error, but with neurons, which is a bit scary.
This seems very very borderline on like violating a couple of rules for animal testing and not.
And it is though one of the main benefits that's advertised with this, because people will ask, why should we switch to that? They say that it's much more environmentally sustainable. So there is this issue, like this weight we have to decide upon. So environmentally sustainable or ethical, and it's again the same question: when is it conscious?
I have a question about that. Do you think it matters from which part of the brain you take the neurons from, like whether they have higher or lower levels of consciousness?
So, from what I understood, it's not like they take a sample from a brain, but they culture just stem cells or maybe one neuron or two neurons to grow the culture, and then they grow it into a sphere. So it's not like the same part as you would see in a full brain. It's a smaller brain with a spherical shape. So
is there any way to like determine if this has a consciousness though?
So I would like to cite an experiment that happened, and I don't remember. I'm not sure if it's the same company, but they tried to train a clump of neurons to play Pong, the first video game with a ball. And when it scored a goal, when players like prevented the goal, my bad, it gave it constant stimuli, so it's not confused. But when it did the wrong move, it gave it chaotic stimuli, which neurons don't like. And in 20 generations, 20 tries, it learned how to play the game, which is much faster than what an AI model could do. So on that topic, I would like to hear your thoughts, your questions, if you've heard anything similar.
This seems very sci-fi.
Yeah, it's very cool, but also it could be a bit
I think this
concerning.
Not just concerning, really test our policymakers to see, because then you'd have to come to a conclusion for what the hard definition of consciousness is, and we're still at a point where we can't define it within.
Yeah, it's like an age-old question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I think as well. Sorry, Vas.
No, you can go.
I said I think as well, if it gets into the wrong hands, then it would be catastrophic for humanity.
Yeah.
That's a bold statement, yeah.
I mean, I can see like the potential of using neurons to compute stuff. I mean, we all know that our brain is very capable of many like tasks, multitasking, and being able to process a lot of things at the same time. The only reason a computer is faster than us is because it's trained to work on one thing, right? Like I can tell a computer to like, I don't know, multiply two big numbers. I might not be able to get the answer. It does it quicker. But if I told the computer to analyze like a sound wave, I might be able to recognize the tune a lot quicker than the computer would be able to. So I can see like the potential of using the neurons, but again, huge gray area on
ethics.
Like
I have interesting thoughts about the reward system, especially because when you're just torturing a bunch of neurons, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound like that ethical. But if it's not alive, then who can tell actually? Who can tell if it's conscious? But I did want to cite another research study that happened, is that they took, again, a processing unit of neurons and they connected it to a simulation where they gave it the body of a butterfly.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, they gave it a body of a butterfly and it learned how to fly, and there was like digital stimuli simulated in the simulation. But doesn't that say something that a bunch of neurons, they learned how to use a body of a butterfly in a virtual space? Isn't that a bit concerning as well?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It is great.
Because like I remember, like you see on like YouTube all these people that like train like ragdolls to walk, and it takes like 3 weeks and 550 iterations of like selective like training where you like take 1,000 like of the same ragdoll, and then the best ragdoll with that did the most things correctly, it like you make offsprings of that, and that's computationally it's way more expensive if you think about it compared to what the neurons managed to do so quickly. Like it's crazy that in that sort of like thought, it's crazy.
And
George,
I think
similar to the thing that you said, I've seen an application or a potential application of that. It's called swarm robotics. Where basically they use the same neurons from the same source, and they'll either make robots that are inspired by like wasps or bees, and obviously bees are like they work.
Oh, like a hive mind.
These little robots can do jobs.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool for a good use of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. Yeah. What I think is a good move by the company, an interesting move by the company, is that they're renting the brain, like the neuron chips for 500 a month, as I said, which also can provide funds to the company, but also it sort of allows for that early stage testing period to see its capabilities and allow scientists to see what they can do with it. But since it's so early and there are no regulations on that, it's hard to put a limit on that, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if it's only for
Yeah.
a month. I don't think there's any limitations as to who can access such a, well, quotes, a powerful tool. Yeah.
Are they the only
Yeah.
company in the world doing something like that?
I think there are other companies as well. There's, I think, well, let me check an article. There is an Australian company called Cortical Labs, and they've made they call it the world's first biological computer. Well, the article that I'm reading right now is calling it that, and it seems like I'm looking at an image right now, and you can search it for yourself. Cortical Labs biocomputer. It seems like it's already a pretty standardized model. So they're putting out this as well. That's another company. But the main one that I've heard about is the Swiss company, the Neuro platform.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but this whole discussion about neurons reminds me of a discussion I had about like lab meat and printing food.
Yeah.
Because like they take like the cells of like the animal, but they're not from the animal. They just make them. I don't know how similar it is because I'm not like I don't know anything about medicine, to be honest with you. Very few things. So what's your thought on that?
It's so the food printing idea is that it's kind of like an alternative to the current practices that we have for getting our protein and other animal products. And so by printing this food, it's supposed to be like the same flavor texture as you'd get from just normal animal meat, but not at the expense of killing an animal or having the costs and other associated I wouldn't say issues, but what's the other word for it?
Complications in like the process of like processing the meat and selling it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like logistical problems. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The associated stuff with having growing animals and processing them, and it's somewhat similar in the sense that you start with a cell and you culture it so that you get more cells. But with the neurons, it's different because I'm pretty sure it's limited to that sphere then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas with I'm not sure entirely, but I assume that for the food printing, it would be like a constant supply of cells that they need to get that texture that they require for the food printing.
Is it like culturing, like making a cell culture, but in a very larger scale?
I'd assume, yeah.
So, the first thought that popped up in my mind on this is that you will probably have to feed it nutrients a lot more than a normal culture.
Probably, yeah.
There is that one interesting YouTuber, YouTube channel, who has made he called it a meat cubator. Meat cubator, yeah. And let me just search it up. Meat cubator. The name of the channel is The Thought Emporium, and they conduct many interesting experiments. Like I'm seeing now a leaf made out of meat and growing living flesh in the meat cubator. And it's basically a channel where they conduct sort of experiments and projects in the biomedical field, but with a lot of times a comedic twist, but still every video explains the science behind it very comprehensively. So I would say that's a good gateway for anybody interested in learning about this stuff.
Yeah, first thing about
The Thought Emporium. It's a good team of people. Yeah.
Cool.
So
well, I think we went a little bit off topic there, but yeah, sorry.
Oh well, that's fine. That's fine.
I was like, I had like a weird comparison, like like in terms of like the ethical sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think like with lab printing, it's completely different because we're not talking about neurons. We're just talking about cells.
Yeah.
Like and cells by themselves are not like, are they alive? Don't.
Well,
Yeah.
they're regarded as the smallest unit of
Life.
But I don't think they have
Consciousness.
Feelings.
Yeah, feelings, consciousness. They kind of just It still,
Exists.
keeps circling back to what is consciousness. Is it the response to stimuli? Is it the
Yeah, and long story. Yeah.
So yeah, I think to conclude this topic, since I don't think we're at a position to decide ourselves what consciousness is,
yeah.
is that personally I would say I'm fascinated by this idea of neural networks to reduce environmental impact as well, but there needs to be some regulations against consciousness and what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what it could be used for.
I would agree, but I think it should be only used for like really, really special circumstances.
Yeah. So I think we can move to our third topic for the day.
Yeah. So basically, this is just something that I'm interested in a lot, and I would probably like to pursue in the future as a career or further research. And funnily enough, the use of AI can link into this topic, mostly for designing and predicting the way that the structures can be folded for the best performance, best efficiency, and stuff like that. But obviously, like we mentioned earlier, I think that a human needs to control this and monitor the process.
So could we start from what DNA origami is?
Okay, so DNA origami is basically the folding, like the kind of manipulation, but not really, of a DNA molecule to complete tasks, whether it be in the body or out of the body. Like one example in the body could be for drug delivery mechanisms. Um, obviously, it's a biocompatible material because it's from the body and it's impossible to be rejected because it's the person's own DNA. And then one part or one use out of the body would be as something called DNA storage or biocomputing, which is really similar to what we just talked about. But I think that's very cool. We had a lecture last year about this, and they recorded a Netflix episode on DNA. I believe that's true. I remember Dr. Julian
I remember
mentioning
that. So they coded the episode on DNA, which can be packaged into very small packages, which makes it a lot more efficient, but a lot more expensive to read currently. So I would say that the basic understanding of DNA origami is literally taking this like chain of DNA and folding it into a three-dimensional shape. And
spot on,
execute tasks.
And by understanding the interactions that DNA molecules can have with each other, you can code this structure to have functions as a nanorobot. They do call them nanorobots within the body, right?
Yeah. I think one thing I'd like to see in the future as well, these structures to be, or these molecules as well, to be physically coded by like a computer program. I think that's pretty cool, but very futuristic. But the uses for it are very cool. I think this is more on the nanorobotic side compared to DNA origami, but microsurgery and nanosurgery, where these little robots are performing a task inside you, like eating away a tumor, for example, and just dissolving it within themselves, and then they can be passed normally by the human.
Has there been anything like that recorded with DNA origami?
No, nothing that advanced yet, no.
Oh.
So do you know if there's like what the limitation is, like what's stopping scientists from attempting this?
To be fair, well, I mean, it's probably quite hard to perform human trials with that, but it's very, very early stages because the full subject of it was only discovered in 2006.
Okay.
So as like the applications research is still in its infancy. So yeah.
So I think a pretty established. According to what we have been taught, a good way to understand the potential use would be in the drug delivery sector. So you can take advantage of two things. You can take advantage of the 3D shape of the DNA that you create.
Yeah.
So you can make it like a pyramid or like a box to store the drug inside it.
Yeah.
and then you can code one receptor part code, fold one receptor part within the DNA to specifically attach to a molecule within the body to go in and release that drug. So it's actually an algorithm, but with folding molecules, which is pretty interesting.
I think a lot of the inspiration comes like for the actual shape of the molecules comes from like antibodies and antigens because obviously they're specific to each vaccine or virus.
I don't know if Vasil, you have any thoughts on this because I think it's pretty outside your field. And if not, it's okay. We cannot include this section. But if you had any questions on this topic, it would be pretty interesting to me.
Well, the thing I was thinking about this whole you said like DNA origami, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you talked about how this whole thing is still new and started in like 2006, they first like found out about it.
Mhm.
Is that what you said? Yeah, okay, I remember correctly. I was wondering, like, can AI be used to like speed up the like infancy part of the research or like any part of the research? So if it has such useful applications, maybe it's important thing to work on quicker.
Yeah, I agree. I think there should be a lot of research in it, but like I said, it's a very complex and probably quite expensive process to carry out. So it's obviously going to be like really esteemed research establishments that are going to be involved in this.
Is it like complex overall or like computationally? Like, is it complex for like the human or like the
Yeah, to
computer?
actually manipulate the DNA is very hard.
Okay. So, like, there needs to be more like research on like DNA manipulation first if we want to speed up.
Yeah,
So
think
yeah, makes sense.
I think because of the scale that it's on, because it's on like in the nano scale, it's really small. There's only certain techniques you can use. There's a lot of like magnetics research that you can use or magnetism type stuff, which is pretty complex.
Yeah, one thought that just came to mind is, because and like in the computer science field, at least they work on a nanometer scale when it comes to creating like a processing units. And like like when it comes to a processing unit, like a CPU, for example, like the wafers that they make, they're like structured in a very like nice structured way. So like one CPU takes like 2 or 3 months to like the whole process. So I was thinking of like if a CPU, which is like a completely structured, like we know exactly like the structure of it, and like it's like very like like how can I call it? Like it has like a nice like linear like structure. It's not messy. Like when I think of DNA, I think of like something that can be like very complicated in terms of like its structure compared to like a CPU, which it has like a bunch of like
It's quite uniform and
traces.
simple. Yeah.
Not
The structure.
sorry, not the like DNA itself. I mean like the strands, like
Oh,
smaller
okay,
scale.
yeah.
Yeah, it for me in my mind as like a non like med, I don't like do work on that stuff, but in my mind it's more chaotic. So if like a CPU takes so long to be made, I wonder how hard it must be to like work with like manipulating DNA in such like a small scale. If it's already hard to like work on that scale in like
Yeah.
way simpler like manufacturing process, for example the CPU I mentioned. Yeah, that was my thought basically. I don't know if it made any sense. Hopefully it did.
No, it does.
It's
It's
an
interesting. I think that's a part where, like, again, as mentioned previously, like computer scientists or AI engineers can work together in the medical field, obviously, because they've got, like you said, experience manufacturing components that are that small and stuff. So, yeah.
It's an interesting thought, if I might say, but there has been a lot of research in DNA sequencing. So yeah, especially within cells as well, like CRISPR-Cas and the PCR to develop sequences. So I would think if you can develop a sequence that attracts itself, you can code it so it can attach in the right spaces. And I'm not sure, I haven't done my research in this topic, but I would imagine that if you can code any sequence, maybe you can make it even assemble itself just by
I feel like with
the bonds.
yeah, with CPUs and stuff, it's everything needs to be down to a very detailed like design. Everything needs to be defined for us to get like a functioning CPU. Whereas with DNA and like biomolecules in a sense, a lot of it can be kind of like you give them an initial set of instructions and they kind of just follow it. Where like for example, like George is saying with DNA, you can cut it at specific parts where then the affinity towards other molecules or to itself increases or decreases. And it just kind of I think it boiled down to how efficiently we can do that. It'll probably lead to, newer manufacturing processes as well, but that are more highly specified for this process.
Yeah, the whole thing you're describing sounds like, for me at least, sounds way more chaotic than like manufacturing a CPU.
Yeah,
That's
no.
why I'm like super impressed that they have even in like a small scale at this point in time, they have managed to like start like working with like in such a chaotic environment. I don't know if it's actually chaotic and what the definition of chaotic you would say is, but like I think you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I think it's insane that they can work with such like I'm thinking like when you give it a set of instructions like a molecular, you said like a molecule, no? Yeah, like can you predict in any way what's gonna happen and how that will affect the monitoring of the whole process?
Yeah. So I think a lot of like for the thing that Nicholas was mentioning for DNA origami itself, a lot of the interactions within DNA molecules have already been analyzed and kind of understood on that molecular level of where, if I cut at this specific point, I know the DNA is going to bend at like a 90-degree angle. Or if I cut
Okay, so that's like defined. There is like hard, like solid definitions on what will happen if you do that thing. Okay, that's actually pretty cool that they managed to do that to a molecular level. It sounds very, very cool.
It's like taking a
sorry,
small
George.
structure with some small like principles of how it operates molecularly, and if you understand those, you can use these building blocks to build what you want, and it can become it can have very high specificity to what you want it to do. For example, to find this molecule in the body, attach to it, and then release the drug, because sequences, it's like the receiving end, you can have a receiver which will bind to the target, to your target, for example. If you have a certain degree of specificity, like you use five of the same, I will call them binding sites. Like I will call them like puzzle pieces for people with no biology knowledge. You can just say that 99% of the time it will bind and do the action you want to do because it's so specific statistically.
Yeah, we're using this principle to just link it back to Sinway for a quick second. We're using these principles to find a better way of diagnosing Alzheimer's, because we know that there's specific things that we can recognize in the gut. So we want to find a way to identify it within the gut and produce a signal that we can measure and hopefully provide people a sense of like, if they're
security.
A sense of security essentially.
Yeah. I was just wondering there if there's any way, as a team, Synwave could utilize like AI simulation software for our work, because it would save us a lot of time.
It's an interesting question. I think the only application I can see it in is as we discuss our methods for how we want the signal output to be, maybe identifying the sequences that we need in order to get our signal output. I think that's one of our biggest applications of where we could, like tools like AlphaFold, we can probably use to figure out, the sequence that we need to get our bacteria to do autolysis, which is programmed cell death. There's probably some sequences that we can look into with an AlphaFold, which then we can use to make plasmids to put inside the bacteria.
You're right. It can definitely help us in the bioinformatics sector, identifying the parts that we need. I think I'm liking how this conversation is concluding right now, and I like the connection to our project.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick have like a quick footnote that uh, for me personally, I'm not like certified in any way to like actually talk about this topic. We're just having a discussion, of course,
Yeah.
and I just happen to be like distinctly educated on it because I like reading stuff on it. But yeah, like sometimes they say that being partially educated in a topic is way worse than not being educated on it. So I suggest everyone that is actually interested in any of these things that we're talking about, they actually go and like research for themselves so they have like a complete picture, because we also might not have a complete picture on some stuff. That's basically the disclaimer I want to say. So yeah, like that's what I want to add.
Yeah, and we're all, I think we're all university students. You have to keep in mind that we're all university students that are
Undergraduate,
interested in
yeah.
and have a passion for this kind of topics.
Yeah.
And we're doing this out of our love for science and these topics.
Yeah, that's
So definitely anything you get out of this podcast, we want you to do some research for yourself.
Yeah.
For our viewers, yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole idea behind this episode was kind of just to spark some
Conversation.
conversation.
Yeah.
If our listeners were interested,
Oh yeah.
more topics that they can look into for synthetic biology or AI in the medical field / biology, etc.
We would like to share our inspiration with our viewers. And to conclude this episode, well, first of all, thank you so much, Vasi, for your contribution.
I would like to thank the whole like Synwave team, like Nicolas, George, and Vas, and I don't know who else is on the team who is not here with us today. But I would like to thank everyone for agreeing to have me on here. I love talking to you. I loved like being informed on things I don't usually have the chance to talk about, because apart from George, I don't really know anyone else who is like working in this field right now. So it's pretty cool to have some more people to talk about it. And I would like to like thank you a lot for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. My pleasure, of course.
So I just want to address the viewers and say that if you find anything interesting, or if you would want us to talk about anything or have any questions to us, you can submit any of your comments on our email, on our Synwave email. It's contact@synwave.co.uk. We would be very happy to see what you guys think about the podcast, and or if you're on any platform that has a comment function, you can leave a comment there and we will read it. Thank you for listening to the third episode of the Synwave podcast, and we will see you next time.